This is the Game Changers Experience. Deep dive conversations with leading business disruptors, Olympic athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and influencers from around the world. This show will teach you insights about the winning principles in mindset, productivity, marketing, branding, entrepreneurship, business strategy, and more. Hosted by productivity authority, business strategist, former elite athlete, author, and public speaker, Adam Strong.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another amazing podcast show with myself, Adam Strong. And today we have a great guest. And you know what's really interesting about today's guest, right? Is his name actually really hooked me in. And also a really good friend of mine, Jack Canfield, who we've had here on the show as well, has actually endorsed our guest's book of today. And obviously I know Jack pretty well. And when I saw that, I was like, that's interesting. Anyway, who have we got on today's show, ladies and gents? Someone that I've met recently, actually. And we actually get on like a house like fire, in fairness. And you know what I love about today's guest is not only his book, but also his acumen and his just kind of his forward thinking in terms of like behavioral science. So our guest for today is no other James Bond. Now, this is not 007, okay? There is no relationship with regards to Pierce Brosnan or any past James Bonds. This is the actual authentic James Bond. That's James I. Bond, of course. Now, James is one of America's leading behavioral specialists and is the author of a best-selling book called Brain Glue. Now, Brain Glue is all about how you can sell, how selling can become much easier for you, and how you can make your ideas stick to your audience's brain effectively, okay? Now, Brain Glue was the finalist of a business book of the year as well by Publishing Weekly. James has also got an up-and-coming TED Talk, which I'm sure he's going to talk about, and has been a featured speaker in 3 top Southern California universities. Now, some of the things that we're going to be covering today is going to be really kind of fascinating because we've done a little bit of this in the past when it comes to neuroscience, neuromarketing. I know we had Les Evans, which was quite a while ago, is a good friend of mine as well. And what we're going to be talking a little bit about today, ladies and gents, we're going to be talking about the concept of Brain Glue. What is it and how you can apply it in your business? Okay, so we're going to talk about that, obviously. We're also going to be talking about how it relates to persuasion and how to sell more. Because, hey, ladies and gents, if you want to sell more, whether it be your product, your service, it generally is because there's a disconnect between you and your audience, okay? And this is the conversations that we're going to have with me and James. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. We're also going to talk a little bit about emotional marketing. Now, some in the past, we've used emotional triggers, emotional marketing, neuroscience. They're kind of very closely related. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. We're also going to be talking, James is also going to be sharing some practical strategies and techniques, ladies and gents, about how you effectively can use Brain Glue and also the power of persuasion and selling more, and how you could finely tune your sales pitch, whether it be on social media, whether it be on your website, or whether it be face-to-face, how you can finely tune that sales pitch so you can get more yeses. And ladies and gents, if you're listening to this in the car, if you're listening to this in the gym, I can guarantee you that today's episode is going to be full of great value bombs. So what I would endorse you do, if you do listen to it, I can guarantee you to rewind, go back, re-listen to it, because I can guarantee you'll pick up new things when you re-listen to things over and over again. So if you're listening to us live, by the way, use the hashtag live, use the hashtag replay. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, make sure that you check out the show description notes below in the podcast. And you can connect with James over on LinkedIn, of course. You can check out his book over on Amazon. which is Brain Glue. Of course, you can check out all the wonderful testimonials and reviews over on there. Anyway, I feel like I'm harping on. I want to introduce today's amazing guest, Mr. James Bond. How are you today?
Oh, I'm fabulous, Adam. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been great. It's great, and it's interesting. When I was looking at your profiles, like honestly, I couldn't make it up. Like James Bond, is this real? And I just had to I just had to do the research. Like I flicked through and I was like, is this guy for real, or does he know that I'm British and so he thinks that I like James Bond type of thing. So I had to kind of check that out. So I just wanted to put that. So funny. Anyway, yeah, exactly. Sure. I mean, Sean Connery was the best James Bond. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
That is
absolutely.
Yeah. But anyway, we're not here to talk about James Bond movies, ladies and gents. We're here to talk about Brain Glue and what James is going to be sharing with us. So, first of all, super excited that here as well because, it was really interesting as well because, I mean, your book, Brain Glue, it's a very thought-provoking and curious book title. And I thought, when I looked at that, I was like, that's really interesting. And I suppose in a way you kind of hooked me in terms of that conversation. Do you know what I mean? I suppose, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, that kind of like emotional trigger, curiosity, that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So, but I'd love to just kind of jump in here, if I may, James, and can you just kind of give us a brief explanation around the concept of brain glue and how it kind of relates to persuasion and marketing within the business world?
So everyone wants to know how to do viral marketing. Okay. Viral marketing is great because you can spend almost zero and your sales take off or you get lots of fans, etc. I'm the first person in the world, it turns out now, to figure out the 14 triggers of viral marketing. So suddenly it becomes much easier to get your message or your product or your advertising to suddenly make a ton of money. I'll give you some examples. I'll talk about the stay-at-home mom. She's a stay-at-home mom and she started a Facebook page. She spent zero on social media advertising. Guess how many fans she has? 5 million fans by spending zero? How did she do that? Wow. I'll tell you that. Okay. How about this guy who stole an idea from a competitor and he made so much money. They're still making money. They're making $1 gazillion from this. And he threw his competitor out of business. Wouldn't you be pissed? Wouldn't you be angry if somebody stole your idea and they make a ton of money and you make almost nothing? I mean, it's just terrible. Or how about the mom and her son the mom is sitting on a toilet and comes up with this product idea. They have no business experience. And in less than 2 years, they generated $100 million. They were on a TV show, Shark Tank, and people in Shark Tank were lining up to invest with these people because they realized, wow, this is incredible because the product is good, but the name is good. I mean, how many people have fantastic products or you work hard and you have a fantastic service, but you're struggling? And yet these people aren't because they figured this thing out. How about Richard Branson? Billionaire Richard Branson. People think, well, he's rich. He didn't start rich. He had almost no money. He dropped out of high school. He borrowed money from his dad to start a little magazine. But he figured this thing out. And once he figured this thing out, he shot his way to become a billionaire. Now I want to talk about those because once you learn these and how easy it is, I've got 14 brain triggers. Once you realize how easy it is, you only need one of these brain triggers and suddenly everything changes in your life. In fact, I've got 3 lines, okay? Switch your pitch if you want to get rich. Switch your pitch if you want to get rich. Brain Glue shows you how to light the fire of desire in your buyer. And I used ChatGPT. It gave me one too. It said, why brain glue? Because plain glue doesn't stick to the brain. I love that. You have to experiment with those things. But yeah, it's amazing. It blew my mind. I mean, I've been doing this for 35 years. It wasn't originally called brain glue. I didn't know what it was called. I was just like, I figured out the brain patterns and how this works. And then I started applying it to clients and started getting dramatic results. And I went like, wow, this doesn't just work in theory. This is actually easy to apply. And I also work with the U.S. Small Business Administration. So I'll have about, 700-800 people a year that I coach or train, and I get to share it with them. And they come back to me and saying, oh, our company, I have a candle company. They make candles for Ellen DeGeneres, a famous comedian who had a TV show. And so she's got lots of, other candles that she makes too. She had about $1 million of sales, but she started struggling. I got her to change the name of some of the candles she has and actually the company. And she's like, suddenly sales are taking off. It's called, it's just when people understand how powerful this is, when you understand how the brain works, and you go, oh, this is a trigger. Oh, I never realized it. And you start, I didn't invent brain glue because brain glue is it's wired into us. I invented the term brain glue. So people see it. So when they start reading through this, they go, oh, that's why that works. In America, we have, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. Attorney Johnny Cochran got celebrity O.J. Simpson off from an almost certain guilty verdict in a murder trial by using this tool, of rhyme and a trigger word. He said, there was two of the jurors after the trial were asked by a journalist, with all that evidence against OJ, and there was like a ton of evidence against him, with all that evidence against OJ, why do you find him not guilty? And one of them said, well, the other one's nodding her head in agreement. Well, we knew if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. The glove didn't fit, so we had to acquit. That was so powerful, that simple phrase for the jurors, that all that evidence made no difference because emotional selling, brain triggers supersedes all the other things that you try to do. And I'm a logical person. Adam, I know you're a logical person. The smartest people are logical. I mean, I'm not the smartest, but I'm just saying, all of you out there, we're smart people, but we focus on logic and we think logic is what makes us smart. But it's emotion that triggers the brain. And it's amazing. I mean, it's mind blowing.
I want to pick something up from what you said, because you said there was a mother and a son that came up with the product, and then 2 years later they came up with you said $100 million. I mean, from my perspective, right? And again, this is just kind of, I find that, and I'm sure my audience would feel like, how is that even possible? I mean, surely that's kind of like, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack, right? It's kind of, I mean, when people talk about that type of turnover in just 2 years from idea to execution, it's pretty much near impossible. And you're telling me just through the brain techniques, through the premise of things like brain glue and neuroscience and emotional selling, you're saying it's possible.
More than possible. It's easy. People are reading my book and they're going, oh, I can do this. Oh, let me give you the woman. Okay. So she's a mom in Utah, in the state of Utah, in America. And she's sitting on a toilet and she puts her feet up on, and she figures out that your body, you can go to the bath. I don't want to get into too much into this, but you can go to the bath. It's easier for your body to go to the bathroom if you can raise your feet about 6 inches off the floor. There's something about the brain, about the body and how it works. And so they said, let's create a product and we'll sell it to lots of other people. So the first thing they were thinking of is, well, we could call it the toilet stool, but that doesn't sound very good. So what's another way to say toilet? Toilet is a potty. Oh, okay, it's a potty. Okay. And you're kind of squatting. Well, why don't we call it the squatty potty? The squatty potty. And they went like, oh, and then people right away go, squatty potty? That's interesting. And now they go, huh, that's interesting. And they start checking it out. And then suddenly sales took off like crazy. I mean, because the people understood what the squatty potty, a squatty potty, huh, that sounds funny. And yet it grabs your attention. What is a squatty potty? You'll hear the message. Okay. How about the woman? How about the mom? Okay. Here's a mom, a stay-at-home mom. And she decided, I want to create a Facebook page, but what do I want to do? What am I going to call it? Okay. So mommy needs time to herself. Mommy needs a rest. I know what mommy needs. Mommy needs vodka. Her page is mommy needs vodka. Okay. So I'll tell you how she won fans. I'm one of over 5 million fans. Okay. Because I must know people that are her fans also, because they shared one of her posts, and she spends zero on social media advertising. She spends zero. Okay. How many people out there spend a fortune on social media and you don't have 5 million fans? Okay, so here's what.
Absolutely.
So I saw a post and I went, oh, that's a pretty good post. Who's it by? Mommy needs vodka? What the heck's that? And I clicked on that to see it, took me to her page, and I looked at some of the other posts and yeah, I like her. Okay, and I became a fan. That's how people became fans, okay? Because it triggered in the brain. Mommy needs vodka. I have these new posts, I have these new social media I'm starting. It's called Stinky Sells More. Okay. And it's using the mommy needs vodka trick, okay, or tool, which is where you want to grab their attention. I mean, we love Kurt Cobain. A lot of people love Kurt Cobain. I love his music and everything else. I mean, too bad he passed away and everything. He had Smells Like Teen Spirit as a song. Now the song is fantastic, but Smells Like Teen Spirit? Ugh, what does Teen Spirit smell like? But he's using a trigger. He uses triggers in many of his songs. Actually, he has. He's passed away, but he understands. You look at it and you love the music, but you also love how he explains it and describes it. I mean, I love his. The album cover with the kid underwater. I mean, that's like fantastic. But when we understand, I have tons of people that are struggling, and you just try a little trick. Oh, so here you try a little change, and suddenly sales explode, and you go. And like I had it because I make over 7 figures. I mean, I make like really good money, but I didn't always. I worked as a consultant, and then I started selling product online. And I started applying this, and like suddenly I started making like. I remember I called my wife and I said, Pam, American Express just charged our credit card $1,000. And she says, well, turn it off. I said, well, wait a second. We just made 5,000, 6,000. Well, I'm going to call you back. And when I called her back and told her how much money we're making, she said, well, like a wife, spend more,
Course,
you only made $20,000 on the 1,000. You got to spend more. How much can we spend, But I remember as I started making so much money, I freaked out because I started thinking, is this illegal? I'm like, have I figured something out that I'm not allowed to do? Because and obviously I didn't, but it's freaky because I did. So look at Richard Branson. Okay. What does Richard Branson and olive oil have in common? Virgin. Virgin olive oil, Virgin Records, Virgin Airlines. Okay. Early on, he figured out that Virgin is a trigger word. There are that's one of the brain glue tools is trigger word. You think of trigger words. So I'll give you a trigger word that a lot of people don't think of is dirty. Okay. Would you think the word dirty is a trigger word? How about the movie Dirty Dancing? How about Dirty Harry, the series of movies Dirty Harry? I'm old enough to remember The Dirty Dozen or Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Okay. So I wanted major magazines in America to do profiles of my book. So, you send them an email. So a gazillion people send them emails, so they're used to getting all these emails. So I wanted to stand out. So what I did was I sent 24 people, 24 writers for major magazines and newspapers, an email. And here's what I said in the email. I was really having fun with dirty dancing and all that stuff. So I said, this is the subject of the headline, the dirty truth about an article you wrote. I had literally within 24 hours, 2 of the people immediately contacted me and said, okay, you got us. Okay, we're interested. Okay. I mean, in the email, I explained I'm using a trigger word that's in brain glue and all this stuff. So I don't want to make them mad at me. But get it. But they responded immediately. They responded like within 24 hours. They said, you got to send me a copy of your book. Okay, you got my curiosity. Okay. And it's all because I used that, trigger word. And so when we start to understand these triggers and how they work, it isn't just trigger words, it's phrases and how we explain things. Suddenly, so I work for these 3 construction guys. Okay. They had a company. And after 10 years, and I have no experience in construction. This is how you don't even need experience in the industry and you can make a ton of money. And so these three guys who after 10 years had $2 million of sales. That's not bad. $2 million of sales, right? In 1 year, I took them to 10 million of sales. In 1 year, 10 million of sales. We went from 2 to 10. And 2 years later, they reached 32 million of sales because of a simple change I made. In fact, by the way, I took them from 2 to 10 million in sales in 1 year, and they razzed me because they said, hey, Bond, it was supposed to be 12 million. My comment was, shut up. They bought each other. They had so much money. They couldn't believe how much cash was coming in. Then they bought each other the biggest BMW you can get as gifts. So they had 3 BMWs, the same car, actually. Same color, too. These guys are weird. But I mean, how did I do it? So I said, let's make a shopping list of all the different types of clients you can go after. And I don't know, all these different things. They've been in business for 10 years, so they had lots of different types of clients. And I said, let's play a game. Let's pretend you're only going to choose one and you're going to say no to everybody else. And they said, well, we don't want to do that. I said, okay, we're just playing a game. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so they went through this and they said, oh, well, we want to do fire restoration for insurance companies. That would be fun. And I said, like, what the heck's that? I have no idea what that is. He said, it's an insurance company that has a client that has a fire. He says, and they were telling me that when, we've only done 3 of them, 2 for one company and 1 for another one. And we've done it a while back, but it was fun to do because what we do is you go in and first you check the frame of the building. If the frame is damaged, you have to tear down the whole building. But if it's not, then you want to put it up and just make sure it's not going to catch fire again and, fix it up. Right. And we could do this. This will really be fun. So I said, okay, so let's think of your insurance guy. What's the word that as a trigger word for him would be fire? Hey, my client just had a fire. Okay. So why don't we call you guys the fire extinguisher for insurance companies? We'll get the website firex.com. And so I went with them on 2 prospects. And I said, so yeah, you guys, anytime you have a client that has a fire, call us. We're your fire extinguisher. We won't put out the fire, but we'll extinguish all the problems. And of course, the clients would laugh. Oh, okay, fire extinguisher. But guess what they did? Every time a client had a fire, they would call. They couldn't believe how fast sales exploded because we just made it easy for them. We recognized what goes on in the brain, and we applied that, the brain trigger to help them become successful. Now, I'll give you one other example.
Very interesting.
Different example, okay? But a lot of people know Head and Shoulders shampoo. So in America, I guess around the world, but in America, we have this game that we play with kids. Head and shoulders, knees and toes, eyes, ears, mouth, and nose, okay? So we all know that. So if you're coming up with a shampoo, why don't you pick something that people already know? Why not Head and Shoulders? Because it already has a positive, trigger for people. They go Head and Shoulders, oh, Head and Shoulders, oh. And they've got it, for a shampoo. It makes sense because it's shampoo, but it also makes sense because it's triggered inside the person's brain. It's already there. Brain glue is fun. I mean, it's really fun. I get to do it for myself, so it's nice to make lots of money. But I also do, I help people and going through that and uncovering it. People are telling me, which is really fun. They read the book. I mean, yes, I'm selling the book, okay? But I mean, it's fun. People go through this because humor works with brain glue too, which is really fun. Mm-hmm. Comedians use brain glue all the time. I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy, okay? I'm an older guy. I like to say, I'd rather wake up and pee than pee and wake up. I mean, there are lots of ways that brain glue works where I have a friend who's a comedian and he's actually using these tools and it's helping him to come up with funnier jokes. I have this one other friend. I don't want to advise everybody to do this, but he said, I'm able to pick up girls using brain glue tools. It's amazing. He said, I tell them brain glue and hey, they like me. So it isn't meant for that, guys, but it's powerful because.
But why not?
Triggering in the brain.
I mean, but why not? I mean, if it works, then why not?
It's persuasion.
Whatever floats your boat, ladies and gents.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I was going to say I want to come back to trigger words because I think you are onto something. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the power of emotional marketing because you talk a little bit. You've kind of tapped a little bit on emotional marketing, but I'd love to know more about how entrepreneurs in particular can tap into the emotions of their audience, so it's easier for them to then sell more. So I'd love to know more about that if you could.
Absolutely. So brain glue started quite a few decades ago. Okay, I'm originally from Montreal, although I live in Southern California, and I've lived here for 36 years. We actually have a son and 3 daughters, and we gave our middle daughters the name L.A. Her name is Lauren Aja, AJA, from the Steely Dan album. I don't know if you remember them, but in fact, she said 2 years ago, she said to me, Dad, why do you call me Aja? I love that name and everybody loves it. I said, well, it's because of this album, Steely Dan, and the song. We love Steely Dan. she called me back after about an hour and said, I hate that song. I was like, sorry, as a parent, like well, we picked, but it's grown on her, so she likes it now. But so I had an advertising agency in Montreal, and I worked my way up and won some of the biggest companies in the world, Kraft Foods, Timex watches, Avon Cosmetics, Seagram's, their world headquarters is there. And so I had an opportunity to win and I'm a logical person, and I'm very logical. At least I try to be. I was good at math and stuff. What can I say? But I had an opportunity to win the anti-drug campaign in America with powerful, logical reasons why you should not do drugs. And then I saw what beat us, and what beat us deserved to beat us. I mean, when I saw the ad, it just scared the heck out of me, and I'll tell you why. Let me tell you what the ad was. It's a commercial with a guy holding an egg and says, "This is your brain," and he cracks the shell and drops the egg into a sizzling frying pan with exaggerated sizzling sound. Sizzling frying pan. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? It's not logical. It's not logical. It's emotional selling. And it scared me because first, this was a gazillion times better than our ad. Our ad was logical reasons why you should not do drugs. This tapped the emotion part of the brain. And yet, and it wasn't logical, and yet it was more powerful than any of the ads that we came up with. And so I realized this is emotional selling. I have no idea how to do emotional selling. They don't teach us in school how to do emotional selling. And I went to a library, and they have superficial things, but they don't really teach you emotional selling. So what I did was I wrote "Your Brain on Drugs" on a 3x5 card, and I put a box next to my computer, and I call it the passion box. I said, every time I see an ad or hear something that's emotional selling, it feels like there's a pattern somehow in it. Instead of trying to overanalyze it, let me put it in the box in the hopes that eventually, I'll have enough examples that I can sort of break it out and figure it out. So after more than 10 years, we moved to California within that period of time, Southern California. But after 10 years, you can imagine how many things I had inside the box. I mean, I had we'd go to a doctor's office, and my wife would say, I'd be going through, because in the doctor's office, they often have magazines that you wouldn't, I'm a guy, I wouldn't have Vogue magazine. I'm going through Vogue magazine and go, oh, wow. And my wife would go, do not tear it out of the magazine. She said, no, I need to put this in my passion box. She would sit as far away as possible from me. I do not know that guy, But so after 10 years, about more than 10 years of putting stuff inside the passion box and moving to Southern California, I met John Gray, an author. And John Gray was telling me about this profound book he wrote. And I remember it's absolutely one of the best relationship books ever. And it was called Men, Women, and Relationships. And he was frustrated because it's such a great book. And everybody who read the book loved the book. He did workshops and it's not workshops, seminars, and people loved it and were really blown away by it. But there's something about the name, because it's logical. He didn't know it back then, but it's logical, Men, Women, and Relationships. So he got this crazy idea. What if I change the title to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? And, put references to it throughout the book, but keep the same book, but you just put references to it. Guess what happened? He went from a few thousand books almost overnight to 500,000 copies got sold, then 1 million, then 2 million. I know Steve Harrison, who helped him from a marketing standpoint. In my book, I say he sold 10 million books. Steve went, no, he didn't. I'm like terrified. Was it less? I said, no, we're over 50 million books sold now. 50. He went from a few thousand to 50 million books just because he changed the title? Just because he changed the title? I wrote Men Are From Mars on a 3x5 card because I wanted to put it in my box, but then I suddenly realized that's a metaphor. Men aren't really from a different planet, okay? I mean, some of you might think we are, but we're really not. Surprise. But it's a metaphor. And when I got home, I dumped the passion box on my bed to see, is metaphor the secret to emotional selling or one of the secrets? And what I discovered is it's one of 14 brain triggers. And when you apply a brain trigger to what you say or what you post, it triggers the emotion centers of the brain where decisions happen. And I didn't realize this, but on research, there's a lot of famous scientists. There's Selman, who's a Harvard professor, and there's Daniel Kahneman, who's a Nobel Prize winning psychologist. And both of them showed how more than 90% of buying decisions are emotionally triggered. Logic is important, but it's less important than emotional, selling. It's like, hey, this is your brain on drugs. Where's the logic in that? Okay. I guess he's saying it fries your brain, but it's just, and I started realizing, wow, are these the tools? Do these tools like, because I had examples of making a difference. Like, I'll give you an example of something called chiasmus. Okay. Now, I'm old enough to remember President John F. Kennedy in America. And his famous line was, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. That's chiasmus, which is a flip. So rhyme is A, B, A, B. It rhymes, okay? But chiasmus is a flip. So so let me give you some examples of how chiasmus works, okay? Winners never quit and quitters never win. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. Okay, I love Mae West, who was in the early days of the movie industry. She is hilarious. I don't know why they don't have a movie on her. She was just amazing. She said, it's better to be looked over than overlooked. Okay, women like a man with a past, but they prefer a man with a present. Okay, not present tense, by the way. It's like showing up with a present. When women go wrong, men go right after them. And this is one of my favorites. Hopefully, I'm not crossing a line with your audience. Is good. A hard man is good to find. Okay. She understood the power of chiasmus. In Southern California, we have this family started a hamburger place. Okay. And they're competing with McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's, like these giant companies that spend tens of millions of dollars. And they didn't have it. It's a family. They barely had enough money to buy the location for a restaurant. In fact, they couldn't even have people sitting in a restaurant. So they had it as a drive-through. And so they wanted to come up with a name that would really pop off the page, because they're competing against like McDonald's and Burger King. So why would somebody go there? Now, you have to have a good product. If you don't have a good product, you get people to come once and they'll never come again or whatever. So, but just because you have a good product doesn't mean you'll be successful. But they came up with the name In and Out Burger. Okay. Now, first, in and out means sex. Well, let's start there. Okay. To a lot of us, you see that. It's chiasmus because it's a flip, in and out. Okay. And it's also in and out because it's a drive-through. And so they had a big, I was just, they've been around for about like maybe 10, 12, 14 years now as a family business, and they're growing like gangbusters. I mean, like gangbusters. The other day, my wife and I were driving down the street and we passed an In-N-Out Burger, and you could see the line of cars. It's like amazing. There's always a line of cars going through In-N-Out Burger. But if they had the name Joe's Hamburger Place, do you think they would be as successful? No, it's like alliteration is one of the tools we have. Okay. It's Coca-Cola, PayPal, TikTok. If they called it the Chinese social media platform, you think it would be as successful as TikTok? How about Shark Tank, the television show? Oh, wow. It's a show about the ocean. No, it's about investors, people investing. It feels like you're in a Shark Tank when you're on the show, but no, it's, they use metaphors. I loved Rocky Road Ice Cream. Rocky Road Ice Cream uses a metaphor. So, I mean, when you open up Rocky Road Ice Cream, guess what? There are rocks inside it. No, there aren't, okay? It's chocolate ice cream with nuts and marshmallows, but it's called Rocky Road because it's bumpy like a rocky road, which is kind of cool. The second thing Rocky Road does, Rocky Road started around the Great Depression. And so because of that, and they were struggling, but they were trying to come up with a product. And when they invented Rocky Road Ice Cream, their sales exploded and they became massively wealthy. So, and a lot of these things, it sounds like, oh, well, they're rich. They started poor and figured out this thing and became rich. So Rocky Road has 3 brain glue tools. The first one is metaphor, because it's not really rocks. Okay, it's chocolate ice cream with nuts and marshmallows. The second one is it uses alliteration, the repetition of sounds. Rocky Road. It's like Peter Pan, there are certain things, and when you hear the repeating sound, it sticks to the brain. I'm a baby boomer, okay? In America, we have Biden's Build Back Better, We have Trump's Make America Great Again, good, great again. They understand in politics, top politicians understand alliteration can be powerful. So for Rocky Road Ice Cream, you've got a metaphor and you've got alliteration, the repetition of sound. But you also have a third one, and that is humor. Okay, and humor actually can be tremendously powerful. Rocky Road was invented during the Great Depression in America. And the Great Depression had a nickname, and it was called a rocky road. So their concept was, we're all on a rocky road anyway. We might as well have Rocky Road ice cream. And people would laugh
Ah,
because they went,
that's
"Oh, okay."
interesting. I never knew that, by the way. I never knew that at all. I thought it was like just some random dude that just created some marketing spoof, but obviously not.
It was, brilliant.
Anyway, something actually triggered in my mind as you were talking. You mentioned twice actually about brain triggers. So you said there were 14 brain triggers. Could you just kind of like in a short condensed version, just give us 14 brain triggers really, really quickly? Because I suppose like in a way, I suppose they're a little bit like not emotional hooks, but I suppose they are emotional hooks, but it's kind of like marketing words that you use in say your copy or your landing page or whatever it is. I suppose it's the same premise, right?
Absolutely. So I'll start with the first one. I'll go through them all, but I'll start with the first one. Okay. So it's set the right expectation. I talk about Muhammad Ali as a good example. He called himself, "I am the greatest." Okay. And he said, the person that had the greatest impact on competitors, but it had the greatest impact on me. Because if I'm announcing to the public that I am the greatest and I'm not, then people are going to start laughing at me and I'm going to be humiliated. So it raised his own level of what he had to capability. Okay. But he's not the only one. I mean, Barnum and Bailey Circus, in the early days of the circus, he basically invented the circus. It was the greatest show on earth. People would look at that and go, "Oh, interesting." So he set an expectation. Michael Jackson was the king of pop. Okay. There are lots of ways, but there are lots of ways you can do this that people don't even think about it, where you want to set the expectation first. I was in a networking group and they had a profile. It was like this pretty expensive one. It was like $2,000 a year and all this stuff. And it had high-end lawyers and all this. And so we had a bio that we put. So people would read your bio if they're going to interact with you, whatever else, a written bio. And I had this investment banker who worked with some of the world's most famous companies and people. Okay. And so I wanted to connect with him. And I had a training program. Okay. And I was talking to him and I said, "So I want to talk to you about this." And he said, "Oh yeah, I got it. You're a consultant." I said, No, I'm not a consultant. I have a training program." "Yeah, you're a consultant." I said, No, I really." He said, "You're a consultant. I got it." And it pissed me off. I was trying to talk about something other than consulting, but it was plugged in his brain because he read it and he made the decision. Once people make a decision of who you are or what you are, it's almost impossible to change. This product is great. Like this podcast is awesome. So they know that. And then they trigger it because they hear different ones and they go, "Oh," and of course, Adam Strong, there's brain glue, go Adam, I mean, but it's just, and what it is, but so you want to set expectation, you want to set the right expectation that triggers the right triggers in the brain. And you need to, do that from the start. What I did, by the way, was I wrote in capital letters at the beginning of my bio, "Not a consultant," with parentheses around it. And I remember I went to a group where other people, and I would stand up and they say, "Okay, introduce yourself." And somebody said, "He's not a consultant." They must have read my bio. Okay. But I said it right up front because I recognize that. But so set the right expectation is one. Tribal alignment is very important. That's understanding we're all members of tribes. Even somebody who's not a member of tribes, they're out, Walden Pond and whatever else, he's still a member of all these people that aren't members of tribes. I mean, we're all connected somehow to other people. And you want to make sure when you're talking to them, you're actually talking in a way that resonates for the tribe, doesn't turn off the tribe. Okay, in America, we have Republicans and Democrats. Okay. If I say, "I love Trump," they're going to say, "Oh, I don't want to hear anything you have to say." If I say, "I hate Trump," other people will say, "I don't want to hear anything you have to say." So, it's like, oh, okay. But you have to understand the tribes. And when you understand the tribes, it helps a lot. Then we have ease of understanding. I'll give you a really good example. So I love this phrase. Okay. So here's the first part of the phrase without the second part, okay? Americans discard 2.5 million plastic bottles every hour. Wow, that sounds like a lot, doesn't it? Yeah, it sounds like a lot. How much is
Absolutely.
that? Okay, I'm going to show you how to punch this up, okay? Americans discard 2.5 million plastic bottles every hour. That's enough to reach the moon every 3 weeks. Okay, I saw your eyes go, okay? Because I've given you perspective and
Wow.
suddenly you go like, what? Well, that's scary. I mean, it is scary and it's true, by the way, but it's more powerful when you add perspective. And so you want to make it easy for people to understand. We think people understand what we're saying. We're talking to somebody, blah, 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 blah. And they're thinking, it looks like they're listening to you, but they're thinking, did I forget to to close the windows of my car? I think it's raining outside. Did I forget to turn off the oven at home? Did this client, are we going to lose that damn client that we have? Or did we just get a client and we don't know how we're going to serve them? Is my wife so pissed that we're going to have a divorce? I got a stomach ache. Talk to somebody and try to sell them who has a stomach ache, okay? Or they have COVID, or they think they have COVID, you're going to talk to them and they're going like, oh, okay, oh, yeah, it sounds really interesting, Adam. Sounds really interesting. I'm not sure we really want to go ahead with it. Why did they say that? Because you didn't trigger the brain. The brain is not focused on you. I love to say this, okay? It's in metaphors. This is how brain glue works. You're driving down the street. You leave your home and you're driving down the street. You see all these other homes or apartments, okay? You've seen them every day. You're not going to look at them and go, oh, look at his, look at his, look at his. You're You're driving down the street. You don't even notice them. One day you're driving down the street and out of one of the windows, you see flames coming. Huh? His house is on fire. Does he know it? Is he going to burn down my house? I mean, I got to call an emergency, That's brain trigger, okay? A brain trigger went off where you go, huh? With our ads, it's the same thing. With our products, it's the same thing. They see product. Huh? What's that? Huh? Men are from Mars, women are from Venus? Whoa, what's that? Squatty potty? What's that? You want to wake up the brain because the brain is half asleep, and we have to accept the fact that the brain is half asleep. That's our easy understanding. I'll just run through quickly what they are. And you can go, if you go to Amazon, they show you the table of contents so you can see what they are too. Then it's analogies and metaphors, anchoring to something that already exists, tone of voice. A lot of people don't know that Margaret Thatcher couldn't become the Prime Minister of England until she actually went to a voice coach because her voice was a little too scratchy and they loved what she said, but they didn't like her voice and there's no way they were going to let her become Prime Minister or head of their party. And then she had a voice coach that God taught her to talk slower and a little deeper. And suddenly she became the head of her party and the head of England. Okay. It's amazing. Barack Obama, I heard this. They said that, people don't like blacks that are angry because they kind of get scared. And so, this is not it's not a racist thing. I've heard, but I'm just saying. And so because of that, he was trained to never show anger. You would show anger, but don't show anger like, hey, because people would be afraid. I mean, it's just, you don't think of these things, but you have to understand your voice has impact on people. And if if I ended every sentence with what? With up instead of down, then people would think I'm always asking a question or I'm unsure of myself. If you listen to some of the journalists on TV, they always end down. This is the end of the world, okay? It's like, this is the end of the world, okay? Those are two different messages, and we have to understand the power of our voice. Then there's trigger oxytocin. Oxytocin, humor is a trigger for oxytocin. Telling a joke could really help. Rhyme to persuade. Alliteration, which is a repetition of sounds. Chiasmus, which is the flip that I was talking about. Chiasmus, a lot of people use that. Trigger words. I've got lots of really good examples in trigger words. The vagina monologues. How about that one? How about it's on off-Broadway. She's massively successful in HBO. The television show channel is doing a special on vagina monologues. Eve Ensler, this lady. So she's actually done it, and it's about women's, women's rights and women's experience in the world. So she said, if the show is called Women's Rights and the Women's Experience in the World, you think as many people would show up as the vagina monologues? Like, what was that called? What? It's like Richard Branson's Virgin Airways, okay? We have Naked Juice. Odwalla was owned by, I think it still is, by Coca-Cola. And they helped Odwalla become the top-selling juice in America, probably around the world, okay? And then so these other guys came up with this idea, and they competed with Odwalla, and they decided to call it Naked Juice. Actually, they had and they were embarrassed in the beginning, so they had naked as a small on the label. And sales didn't go that great. And then a graphic designer told them, you should make it big, naked. Said, okay, fine. They changed the label and they made it big, naked, in big letters. and their sales exploded. They passed on Walla to become the primary juice brand in America, and they're competing against Coca-Cola. This is the thing about Brain Glue is you don't have to spend a fortune, and you can literally take on the giants if you want to. So that's one of them trigger words. Then we have lots of trigger words. It's really fun. Then there's odd mental surprises. Those could be really fun. Rejection attracts, And then the last one is sense elevation. Like there are lots of sense of plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is for Alka-Seltzer. Had the sound in it. Smells Like Teen Spirit is, the song. But like when you use, tools like that, and you can only pick. I have people that will say, I use this one tool for this thing. I have a lot of musicians, and they said, I started using the sense elevation on some of my songs. It was really fun. Now I'm using chiasmus as well. There's a famous song, if you can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with. My wife hates that song, okay? But I mean, it's like, it resonates. Even people that don't like Crosby, Stills, and Nash, who remember that song, they still remember the song. And so that's the 14 brain triggers, and they're really powerful. And I want to give you one more, okay?
Go for it.
So it uses redintegration, brain glue, okay? Which is the brain's need for completion. Like if I ask you a question, you feel like you have to answer it, don't you? It feels like it. I see you nodding your head. So and I do this with audiences, and I say, "How about now? Are you still answering it? What about now? What about?" And they finally stop moving. I said, "You're not moving, but you still feel like you want to answer the question because it's wired into us." Okay. So redintegration likes symmetry. Okay. My wife will look at some guy on TV and she'll see one of his eyes is sagging. And she hates it because you can cover half of his face and he looks like one guy, cover the other half, he looks like a totally different type of person because she loves symmetry. We all like symmetry, but she really loves symmetry. But asymmetry can also be profound. So Marilyn Monroe, okay, and a lot of people don't know this, her name was Norma Jean, I think Mortensen. And her manager said, the name Marilyn is better than Norma Jean if you want to be successful. She said, okay, fine. She changed her name to Marilyn. And her stepfather was named Monroe, so Marilyn Monroe, which uses alliteration, Marilyn Monroe. Okay. Then she loved Jean Harlow, who was in the early days of the movie industry, very famous. And Jean Harlow had platinum blonde hair, so Marilyn went to the same hairdresser as Jean Harlow and had her hair colored platinum blonde. Okay. And then so now when she had a beauty mark on her cheek, on the left side of her cheek, and she would cover it up because she figured she didn't want people to see that. One day she's looking at photographs of Jean Harlow, and she notices in some photographs Jean Harlow has a beauty mark on her cheek, and some of them she has it on her chin. Wait a second. I bet she doesn't even have a beauty mark. I bet she's putting a dot on her face to bring attention to herself. And Marilyn said, I bet that's going to be really important for me. So she, instead of hiding it, she started darkening the dot on her face. And she believed that was a huge reason why she became such a blockbuster model. So Cindy Crawford is a supermodel, and she's the same. Cindy Crawford was born with a birthmark over her left lip. And she begged her mom, and she tells us in her biography and all this, she begged her mom to please get it removed, and her mom would not take her to the doctor to get it removed. She says, I am so happy that my mom never got it removed. I believe I became a supermodel because of that beauty mark, And so what made me think of that, and it's interesting, it's because it's a dot on the face. I mean, think of Mike Tyson, okay? He's famous for what? Biting the guy's ear, but he's also famous because he's got a tattoo on one side of his face. And so what made me think of it was David Ogilvy in the early days of advertising was world famous, okay? And how one of the companies he worked with that he made really famous was Hathaway shirts. In fact, what's his name? Warren Buffett, his company is called Berkshire Hathaway because he bought Hathaway shirts, okay? Because became so successful. So how did it become successful? Let's pretend you're running an ad for Hathaway shirts or a shirt company, okay? What do you have? You have a good-looking guy wearing one of the nice shirts, good pair of pants, shoes, hopefully, maybe bare feet, and a nice background. Looks like every other shirt ad. So what did David Ogilvy do? He put an eye patch on the guy. The guy's not a pirate, but he put an eye patch on the guy. And he said, the man in the Hathaway shirt. And so you're flipping through magazine, page. Here's a guy with an eye patch. What's that all about? Oh, the man in the Hathaway shirt. And he used that hook of asymmetry, okay, like something on one side of the face to draw attention to himself. Jason Momoa, I think that's what his name, who's the guy who's the Aquaman. If you ever look at him, one of his eyebrows is missing hair and just in the middle of it. It's subtle, and yet things like that make you stand out from the crowd. As the dot on Marilyn, and now every one of you guys who are listening out there, the girls I can understand, but the guys, don't put a dot on your face. But if you want to get attention, I guess you can. But it's just it's understanding how the brain works and then using that so that you become viral is what you do. And that's what you want, is you want people to go, oh, you want people to go, whoa, it's like flames coming out of the window, and then saying, oh wow, man, you got to hear about this. Last story, okay? But just I want to give you a story. How metaphors work. So Paul Tran came up with this electric razor for man's private areas. I don't want to get too much into that, but okay. And so he's thinking, like, what could I name it that would really stand out? And he's thinking, and he said, it's just kind of like a lawnmower. Why don't I call it the lawnmower? In fact, why don't I call my money Manscaped? We're landscaping a man with the lawnmower, okay? I mean, his sales exploded. Okay. Now, first you laugh. Laughers are buyers, and you don't always have to make them laugh, but and it's a lawnmower. Okay. I remember, if I bought it, I would not share it with other guys. So let's start there. Okay. But if I bought it, I'd share the story. I'd say, hey, guess what I bought? I bought the lawnmower. And guys would say, what? You have to mow your lawn? No. It's a lawnmower for mowing my private areas. And they start laughing, and they'd share the story with other people, and suddenly word of mouth would explode like crazy. So that's why when you understand these tricks that stick to the brain, it makes your sales explode. It actually makes you have fun too while you're doing it. And so, brain glue is fun.
Very interesting. I mean, listen. I mean, I've been cracking up without you kind of really knowing. But I mean, it is very fun just talking about it, and it's kind of I get your point now. Oh yeah, I didn't. You know what I mean? It's kind of like aha type of thing. I know I'm conscientious of time and stuff like that, but I want to ask you a final question before you go, because I think this is going to be really key, especially to our listeners. And I hope you guys are having a ball of a time listening to me and James. But I'd love for you to just share some quick takeaways or actionable tips that for a lot of our audience members that can help them to become more persuasive or more successful, whether it be with their sales pitch or with their sales copy or whatever it is. But if you've got some key takeaways, that will be fantastic.
Absolutely. And so because we're logical, most of us start with logic. So let's say you're going to come up with the name of your product or a way to describe your product, because a lot of people use it for a sales pitch too. Okay. And it's very powerful for that. But so the first thing you want to do is you want to come up with, I'll give you two simple examples: the squatty potty and ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you do for your country. Okay. So let's start with that. Okay. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. So the first thing you would say is, so I want people to, help our country do better. And you start with that. And then from that, it evolves to, well, let me ask what you can do for the country. Okay, now you apply chiasmus. You say, well, let me flip this. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. And so that works that way. Okay, so let's pick squatty potty. Okay, so she created a toilet stool, and she said, so it's a toilet stool, but I don't want to call it toilet stool. That doesn't sound very good. It doesn't sound really attractive. So what are other words for toilet? And for your product, it's the same. For your product or service, come up with what are some other words you can use. You use a dictionary, use Chat GPT or artificial intelligence, whatever it is, but come up with all these other words that are synonymous with the word you have. So she came up with this and said toilet. Potty. Potty was one. And that was probably one of several words she had, but potty is a good word. And then she said, well, what do you have to do? Well, you have to sit with your legs up. So what's that like? And then so she started with potty, so a synonym. And then she said squatty potty, because I'm squatting. And she recognized I need to make it rhyme. It's not squatting potty, but squatty potty, and it sounds fun. Okay. So here are three simple tools that you can use. The first one is come up with synonyms for your product or service. Okay. Like the lawnmower. Okay. What's it like? Just like a lawnmower. I mean, that's what a crazy. Can you believe that's the name of his product? But I mean, boing, it's like
Love
flames
that.
coming out of the window. So you want to come up with analogy or metaphor first. It's just like and it just be crazy. Come up with the craziest. It's just like a naked man running through the forest. Okay, I mean, come up with the craziest ideas you can and have fun with it. Okay. Second is rhyme. Once you have words like that, see if you can come up with a rhyme that does that. Okay, that helps with that. And then the third one is alliteration. I mean, there are lots of tools you can use, but these are good ones. Alliteration. Can you find words that sound similar to that? And again, I'll come back to mine. Okay, switch your pitch if you want to get rich. That's brain glue. Okay, brain glue shows you how to light the fire of desire in your buyer. You know, it sticks. I get people talking. I did a TED talk. It's coming out soon. You know, because Ted has to, do editing of it and all that stuff. But that's one of the things I talked about. And people said, "Oh yeah, boy, well, I love that. Light the fire of desire in your buyer." Everybody in the audience was talking to me, and the first thing they said was, "I love that. Light the fire of desire in your buyer." It's like, okay, it worked. Okay, I mean, even I'm an expert in brain glue or specialist in it, and even I'm surprised by it. But those are the three. Start with synonyms, metaphors, and analogies, and rhyme and alliteration, repetition of sounds. And that will often help you to understand, how to come up with it. Of course, buy my book. I think you'll love the book, but even if you don't buy the book, these are tools that will really help you. Brain glue is it's such a basic thing that people have so much fun with it while they're making money that it's just, because it's teaching you something that we see, but we never put it together and said, "Oh, that's all rhyme. I never thought about that." Huh. It's just, there's so many ways to do that. And you go, oh, and it gets you thinking, and because it gives you exercises too, like, oh, well, what's a rhyme for, ugly car? I mean, I won't give some examples, but anyway, for such and such, whatever I have, and once you start doing that, the first thing that'll happen is you'll go, that's really funny. I think that'll be funny. And you're not going to have the courage to change the name of your product or describe it that way. And then I invite you to experiment and try it. Because just like, with the fire extinguisher guys, they were laughing, but they weren't going to really apply it. I went with them and we started applying it, and they couldn't believe how much clients laughed. And then they couldn't believe how much their phone was ringing. It's like, I couldn't, 2 to 10 million in sales in 1 year, 32 million. It went from 2 to 32 million in sales, all because of a tweak. Because it isn't a major thing. It seems like a small thing, but it's huge. Anyway, I blabbing away. Sorry about that.
Very good. No, that's cool. For you guys that are listening in, I hope that first of all you're getting some great value bombs from James, and he's given you some really not just tools and strategies, but I think he's given you a whole chest full of great tactics and just kind of ideologies that you can apply, whether it be to your sales pitch, whether it be to copy for a landing page, or even just your messaging, whether it be on your social media messaging. Because I can guarantee you, one of the things that I found in doing thousands of interviews like ones that we're doing with James is that the more that you create curiosity with your audience members, right? The more that you create curiosity and use the human, use the fun, okay, as an advantage, that's always a great way. It's a great hook to bring people in. It's a bit like fishing, right? You feed a man for fish, teach a man to fish type of metaphor type of thing, right? So for you guys that are listening in, by the way, if you haven't checked out James's book, make sure you do so. Go onto Amazon. I'm actually going to go purchase the audio version because I like audiobooks and I enjoy audiobooks. It's my thing type of thing, whatever it is. So, and also, if you need more information, not just about brain glue, but more so about the application of brain glue, then get in touch with James over on LinkedIn. And also you can check him out on Amazon.com as well. So first of all, James, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing some time with me. And it's been a ball.
Oh, thank you, Adam. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been lots of fun. You're great. I see why people are hooked on your podcast. I mean, if they're not connected to this podcast, they're crazy. Not just because of me, but because of all of them. I got hooked. I almost wasn't able to make it on time because I was so busy listening to some of the other podcasts you have. I mean, I've listened to them before, but I love your podcast.
Maybe what we should do is we should create a book called Podcast Glue, Maybe we should create something like that, and I'll create some emotional triggers about how to get on more podcasts, ladies and gents, and how to build your personal brand. That could be kind of cool, right? Anyway, I'm not going to. I'm not here to. I'm not here to get a lawsuit, by the way, for any IP infringements, of course. But anyway, it's another thing. But it's all good. Anyway. Hope that you've enjoyed today's amazing show. It's been an absolute ball, especially from a marketing perspective. Something completely different, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So for you guys that are listening in, thank you so much. Please do me a favor. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can interact with the AI tool over there, and you can ask questions, of course. Or if you're on Apple, please leave a 1 or a 5-star review. Honesty. An authentic review, of course. If you have enjoyed, please leave a review wherever you are in the world. We'd really greatly appreciate it. One of my big goals, actually, by the end of the year, is to get over 100. So if you could help us achieve that goal, then that would be amazing. Anyway, wonderful listeners, thank you so much from me and James. I really greatly appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you again on the next podcast episode. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.